What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another special Black Desert video. My name is John, and today we're going to be talking about the Land of the Morning Light. I'm going to give you a little review and summary of what I thought overall, and just some background things you should know. Things we're going to be talking about are: is there to do? What came with the new region? Is it worth coming back to play the game if you took a break or anything? The new player experience, if you were starting out, should you start in that area? The story, all the problems that came with it, the journals, the new items, gloves, bosses, and replayability. So yeah, I'm going to answer all of those. And just a little bit of a background. I played through basically the entire thing on day one, as in the story. And a lot of the new stuff that you get along with it is locked behind the story. So there's about, I would say, 300 to 400 quests that you have to do, and it's kind of mandatory because it unlocks progression, which I think is one of those things that I wish was more optional, because like there are some players that obviously enjoy the story, and then there are some people that only care about gearing and progression. So yeah, that's one thing to do, and let's talk about that. The Land of the Morning Light as a whole. If you are a new player, you're probably wondering, what is this and what's included? So first of all, in the new region, it's like obviously like an expansion for any other MMO and stuff. So there's a story and new gear, just new content, right? And one thing I saw they added was, if you are a new player, you know how you get like the start of a zone? Like, for example, you could start in either Balanos or Western Guard Camp or Mountain of Eternal Winter. I believe there's a new option now with the Land of the Morning Light, and you can start in that region. It was the old Port Rat, and it's a huge region actually out in the back. Yeah, how long does it take to beat it? Is there a lot of replayability? On average, I think if you were just rushing the storyline, it would take you between 7 to 10 hours. And if you were listening to all the dialogue and watching all the cutscenes, which actually the cutscenes are unskippable, which is one thing I wish was an optional feature. So for all the people who literally don't care, you could just skip it if you want to, but they're unskippable. So I think you'll get probably around maybe like 30 or so hours if you are literally listening to all the dialogue and watching everything. So I think that's a good chunk of content for like your casual player, which I think is cool. So one thing that I thought was interesting with this area is it's broken down into chapters of bosses. So like, I actually have a full playthrough on the channel. You guys can watch it if you want to. I'll leave a link in the description to my playthrough, and you guys can see what it's all about. So without spoilers, each chapter is like a different storyline and a different boss that unlocks the boss Blitz or the Black Shrine later on. And what that does is most of the end game content, you know how every region usually comes with grind spots? This time around, they chose to go with the boss rush. Basically, it's like a competitive thing where you fight a boss, and then you can raise it up from difficulty 1 to 10, and there's leaderboards for that. So that's like the main end game part of it. So unfortunately, most of that is locked, but behind the story progression, and that's over 300 quests. So if you don't like doing it, you just kind of have to power through it at least once. The problems I had with this story, or just like everything that might be fixed in the future, so if the developers are just watching this video, which I think some of them actually do, so one, I would make the cutscenes optional. I think it's just overall better for everyone. If you want to watch it, cool, you just do that. If you don't, then obviously skip it. And two, there's a few other problems, like you go through forced cutscenes, right? And sometimes when you get out of those cutscenes, you are unable to interact with anything. So the way you fix it is just like opening one of those menus at the bottom of your screen. And I guess this might be if for console players as well. You know how like at the bottom it'll probably show you where all your settings are, where you open your mail and everything. Just click one of those buttons and then that should fix it. I don't know if that's probably not intentional, so just putting that out there. Some of the things that you could do for adventuring as well is, as you guys know, adventure journals are a big thing, and one of the things that you have to do is collect a lot of chests, which is like 5 journals worth of them, and then that's like 100 plus total. So for all of you who like exploring, I think that's a really interesting thing to do. It took me about 5 hours to do 5 books worth of finding chests, and that was looking at a guide as well. So I think that is an interesting topic to bring up, because if you are a casual player, I think the exploration is pretty fun. However, for all of you who don't like doing it, this is the thing that kind of sucks, because as you guys know, adventure journals give stats permanently to your family, or basically your account. And if you are anywhere competitive, these journals and everything, they're not optional. You are basically required to get it if you want to stay competitive with like free stats in the game. So one of them is kind of tedious, actually, and I think one is currently bugged until the 21st. So if you see this earlier, yeah, you don't worry, it's not you, it's the game. The developers know it, it'll be fixed. If you're watching this like 6 months down the line, just disregard that, because it'll probably be fine. There's a lot of story. I think, let's say between 10 to 30 hours for the story, and then probably about another 10 or so, 10 to 30 hours doing extras, which are like adventure journals, exploring for energy, knowledge, the usual stuff. So after that, what else is there to do? The new item for the region was the Dahn's gloves, or the Dawn's gloves. I don't actually know how to pronounce it, but it's kind of like the Fallen God armor or the Labreska helmet. It's basically the equivalent of that. If you've enhanced one in the past, it's the same thing, just do it again. And so I actually have another video that I'll leave it in the description of how to make it and me enhancing it. I thought that was pretty interesting. You should watch that one. So yeah, it comes with a new item for everyone to go for. Lastly, let's talk about the bosses, because this is probably what's going to be considered the meat of the region. Why do people come back and do anything for endgame? So this is a new concept they introduced with the game, which is basically something called a boss rush or boss blitz. So basically, during the story, during the chapters, they'll introduce a new boss, and there's, I think, about 8 or 9 of them. And what it does is, like, you raise the difficulty from 1 to 10, and you get weekly rewards based on the highest tier you've done. One thing that I want to talk about is the lockout. And so you can do 5 of them a week. And one thing that I don't think is like necessarily good about that is because it's limited to the new things you can get, like the Deboreka earrings, which is the new end game earrings that you can get, along with just like materials to do whatever else you do, like enhancing or life skilling. So after that, they added a new addition to the 2 new life skills, which is a new sniper rifle for hunting, which allows you to gather new materials, along with a new type of gathering, which is also pretty interesting. So that's something that we'll be doing in the future. And so aside from all of that, in my opinion, for a conclusion, is there a lot of replayability in this game or the new region? I think that it's really fun to do the endgame bosses. However, it's like once you get your gloves and you complete the story and journals, aside from your weekly 5 lockouts, which I think should be increased actually to like 10 or something, just so people can experience everything, I don't think there's much of a reason to be back. Like every Saturday or Sunday, you're going to Go back, do your weekly bosses. Probably gonna take like an hour or two every week, and then you go back to doing what you normally do, which is outside of the region. So yeah, overall, I think you'll get probably maybe around like 50-60 hours of content in a new region, which I think is like pretty solid, especially since we didn't even pay for it. And aside from that, after you've basically explored everything, all you do is go in once or twice a week and do your boss blitz, and then that's it. So what would I give it an overall? I'd probably give it a solid like 7. I could talk about the story. This is just my personal preference. I think that the voice acting, if you are playing it in English, is a little bit off. Just because the main character, well, you are the main character, but like the, I guess, side character that follows you around and guides you everywhere, I think like for all the Koreans out there, if you really think that the voice acting of, like, I guess considering, I don't know if it's like considered an American, but I think that's what they think Americans sound like, and it's kind of cringe. But if you are just playing it for what it is, then I think it's okay. But yeah, there's a lot of small nitpicks I can pick here and there, but it was a little bit cringe. The story was overall okay, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You can watch some of my videos. I'll leave a link in the description if you just want to watch it instead of doing it yourself. And yeah, in case, I don't know, when did it come out on console? Is it out already? I have no idea, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. As a quick recap, new bosses that you'll do weekly, new gloves, earrings, new adventure journals, stories, and a new player experience. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions, leave in the comments, join the Discord and all that stuff. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you come back, and I will see you tomorrow.